Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be doing the Unpopular Opinions book tag. I have done this video in the past, but I wanted to redo it as recently I was discussing the novella The Fireborn Blade in a new fantasy releases wrap up, and in talking about that novella I was mentioning how I thought it was exceptional. I really thought that while it had its inspiration very much on its sleeve, that what it did with its inspiration, its blueprint being kind of classic dragon slaying fantasy, what it did with it was so unique and fascinating and unlike anything I've really seen before, and I liked that blend of the familiar with something different and new, plus it's a bit of a genre bender, so I really loved it. But when I went to see if there was going to be a sequel, I saw that the average rating for an adult fantasy work was a little bit on the lower end. I do find that adult fantasy works tend to skew a little bit higher than other genres and other age ranges, and so when I saw the average rating, I was like, oh, well, I guess I just have the unpopular opinion. And then that made me wonder what other unpopular opinions have I had recently, and I figured this tag sort of naturally facilitates the examining of what your unpopular opinions might be. Jumping into it, I'm actually going to do question 2 first, as it is related to the Fireborn Blade, and that question would be a book or series that many people don't like, but you love. I don't know that so many people don't like the Fireborn Blade. I think a lot of people just seem to have categorized it as familiar and that it's classic. It's what you've seen before. And again, while I don't disagree at all that it is very much inspired by something that's already been established in fantasy, I still think that what it did with those things is unlike anything I've seen before, and I just want more of that. Question 1, it says a popular book or series that you don't like. So, I recently have been putting together a video that is going to be very, very long, and it's going to be the first in a new series that I'm doing. And I'm tentatively calling this A Fantasy Fan Reads and then fill in the blank, where I'm going to be going through various subgenres of fantasy and really only looking at that subgenre for a period of time, or entirely different genres. For now, I'm sticking to subgenres, and one that I am starting with would be fantasy romance, because like a lot of us, I'm not necessarily opposed to fantasy romance. I like the idea of combining amazing fantasy world building with really compelling love stories. I think that that sounds great. I just haven't found really one that is an absolute gem and is a favorite and is like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Most of what I end up tapping into is sort of leaning into the romance side of fantasy romance and less into the fantasy, and I want more of a balance. But in doing this video, where I'm going through a lot of fantasy romance, I asked for your suggestions, whether they be things you've read before or not. Maybe you just are curious what I am going to think of something, but I picked up When the Moon Hatched, which is blowing up currently. It's new. It only just recently, I think, traditionally came out this year. I think it was previously self-published. And I have it right here. So, pretty much all of these tabs, which you can see, I only started putting tabs in about here, and then everything is basically not positive. I really, and that book's almost 700 pages. I think it made me miss Fourth Wing, which I'm not trying to hate on Fourth Wing, but Fourth Wing was not for me. I gave it a try. I tried its sequel, and I'm like, no, I just don't think this is going to be my cup of tea. But, yeah, I was like, I would read Fourth Wing again. If I had to, right? If I had to choose. I'd obviously rather read other things. But, oh my gosh. It was, I think the best way to put it is that it's basically like, what if Selena from Throne of Glass had Rhysand as her love interest, but in a slightly more modern fantasy world, which I haven't read Crescent City, but I know some about Crescent City. So that's basically what that book was. Had a lot of the tropes that I'm personally trying to avoid at this point and that I don't care about. But hey, lots of people seem to really like it because it's only come out this year, and I think it already has almost 45,000 ratings and a very high average rating. And again, comparing something like that, which I get that they're completely different despite the fact that they both fall under the umbrella of fantasy, comparing something like that to the Fireborn Blade, where I'm like, oh, this is what I mean by why I want to do this Unpopular Opinions book tag, because people seem to be loving When the Moon Hatched, and then the Fireborn Blade, it's like, oh, I've been there, done that, and I'm like, so is this. What? Why? I'm just, it's fine. It's fine. It just didn't work for me. Next question. A love triangle where the main character ended up with a person that you didn't want them to end up with, or a one true pairing that you don't like. Okay, so many of you know that over on my side channel, Full Meta Analysis, I watched through for the very first time Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I thought it was fantastic. I really loved it. I completely understand all the hype and nostalgia that people have for that. And I recently did a video where I went through all of your unpopular Avatar opinions, which, oh my gosh, that video turned out to be so long, but I wanted to get through as many as possible, and I really enjoyed seeing your thoughts. But I am not of the mindset that and I'm not going to say the character names, because if you, like me, have never watched the show and you want to, I don't want to spoil anything. But I'm not saying I don't like who ends up with who, and that I would have rather had two other characters end up together. It's just that I would have preferred nobody in the ships that are commonly discussed. I wish neither had been a thing established by the end. I wish it was kind of just like maybe up in the air, or everybody's friends, and maybe some people have crushes, but that's that. So it's less that I hate the resulting couple. It's more that I wish nobody was a couple, I guess. And that's in large part because they're so young that I don't know. I didn't love how it was executed either. I'm trying to be vague. If you would like to hear more thoughts, though, a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about this, so I'll have that Avatar video linked. But yeah, I would just say, it's not that I would have preferred someone else in this potential triangle, which I don't even feel like, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm going to move on. You understand. Next question. A popular genre that you hardly reach for. I guess mystery and thrillers. I am considering, when I do this video series I've been talking about called, A Fantasy Fan Reads, and I read through various subgenres and other genres. While I want to probably focus on subgenres initially of fantasy, when I do branch out into other genres, I'm considering starting with mystery and thriller, because it does seem like a really fun genre, and it seems like one that sometimes fantasy has elements of, and that could be really fun to do that kind of juxtaposition and comparison, but in general, it's just, for the most part, very different from what I usually read. I don't know that too many fantasy books have the thriller component. I think they do tend to have mystery components to them, but the thriller element, I feel like less than, perhaps, unless you're getting into fantasy horror. But even then, horror and thriller are not exactly the same thing. So that could just be a really fun palette cleanser, and also just exploring a different genre. But that is my answer. I don't tend to read those genres very much. Question 5, a popular or beloved character that you don't like. Okay, I'm not going to pick a book character, because I don't know that there's too many that I don't like that lots of people really love. I've said someone from Stormlight in the past, but I'm not going to say that character again. I'm going to actually mention somebody from a film, and that would be Ponyo. I don't like Ponyo. Some people are like, oh, Ponyo, she's so cute. When she's like, Ham, I want Ham, or whatever she says about Ham. And I'm like, why do we like her? I don't know. I think Calcifer is kind of cute and funny, and I like Gigi from Kiki's Livery Service. That I get. I get the little shape, I'm forgetting what they're called, but the little weird things from Princess Mononoke. I get those, but I don't get the Ponyo love. Now, if somebody said they didn't like Ashitaka, I would be like, excuse me. That would be a really, I would be like, hey, come on now. Ashitaka is the best. But yeah, Ponyo, I'm confused by the love for Ponyo. I don't really get it, and I don't really like Ponyo. There's nothing there. Anyway, moving on. 6, an author that you can't seem to get into. So I wrote Adrian Young, who is the author of The Unmaking of June Farrow, and a lot of other works as well. I have read 3 books by this author, and I have not disliked anything that I have read. I like the premise of a lot of the works. I actually like the writing style, but something about the way that the stories are told never ends up really sitting with me. I don't dwell on them. I don't think about them all the time. I don't think about the characters. It's sort of like I read the books and then as soon as I'm done, they're out. I don't know what it is. And I want to like these works because I do like the writing, and I do find that the synopses always seem to sound pretty interesting, but it's 3 times now, and it might just be the style and the authorial voice that is not clicking. But I don't actually think that there's anything wrong with it. Question 7, a popular book trope you're tired of seeing. Okay. I'm going to say, because this is applicable in so many different genres, but usually it's the hetero couple, where one of them is a doormat, and they have no substance. They are not interesting whatsoever. There's nothing to them besides they're the love interest, and they exist to serve the main character. And this happens both directions, right? I think in a lot of older fantasy, you'd have this hero's journey, and you'd have this character that throughout the course of the story, you're getting to know more about. And then some lady appears, and that's their love interest, and she just kind of exists to be a love interest to the main character, and there's nothing really there. And then in, I would say, more modern fantasy, we almost have a reversal of that, where you have, in the previous example I just gave, that tends to be more focused on like the male character who is this hero during a hero's journey. I'm being, of course, I'm giving examples, but this is not, I'm generalizing. This is not how it always is. But then in modern works, it seems like what I was saying before, we're getting a reversal where now you have a female protagonist who is complex, is dealing with a lot of trauma. There's a lot to unveil and discover about them. And then there, usually it's a male love interest, will just be there to love them through anything. They have no personality of their own. They have no motivations. They don't get to be flawed. They only get to exist to support the female character. And both instances reduce a character to nothing. They end up being so empty, and it's so aggravating, and it still happens. And I just want characters who feel like real people. I just want the characters all around to have substance. I understand sometimes time does not permit us to get to know everything there is to know about the love interest, but if the main character gets to be flawed and they end up exhibiting certain behaviors sometimes that are a result of anger, frustration, trauma they have not really worked through and dissected and understood, like, why am I reacting the way I'm reacting in this moment? And maybe they're actually hurting another person, their feelings, not physically, because that would be a different story. But if they're doing something to push a person away or to be manipulative toward another person, and it's rooted in something they haven't been introspective toward, I feel like that other character needs to not just be like, anything you need, I will be here through the ages, always you. And I'm just like, no. They have every right to be like, why are you acting like this? Why are you being like this? I don't deserve this. They get to be their own person too. I don't like when it's one-sided, and it seems very one-sided. It seems like it's been a thing for a long time. We're just kind of reversing the roles, but I just want characters to not do. Anyway, that's my answer. That's what I'm tired of. Question 8 is a popular book or series you have no interest in reading. Crescent City. I don't have any interest in that. It seems like it is not a lot of people's most loved Sarah J. Maas work in general. I've read a decent amount of Throne of Glass. I read some of ACOTAR, and it seems like a lot of people like those two series more than Crescent City, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. 9. It says, the saying goes that the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation is better than the book? In the past, I would have said The Wild Hunt, Witcher video game. I personally think is the strongest version of the Witcher series. However, I have since the last time I did this, I have read Howl's Moving Castle, and while charming and cute and fun, I do like the movie more. I love the movie. It's so cute, and it's so charming, and it's so eccentric and weird and borderline nonsensical at times, but it's just precious. I adore it. So I'm going to say Howl's Moving Castle for my answer to this one. But that's it for the Unpopular Opinions book tag. I would love to know what would your answers to these questions be, and if you have anything to add to anything I mentioned during this video, feel free to do so in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.